go ahead and buckle your sofa seat belts up and clear your plates because you're getting ready to get served a huge portion of irony with the case that we're talking about today. Today we're talking about a Utah mother and formerly wife who allegedly has taken the life of her husband and then wrote a children's book on grief about it.
After his sudden death, Corey posted a tribute on her social media about how hard it was without him.
It's gonna be a rough ride, everybody, so get ready. Hello everybody and welcome back to the sofa, which is right behind me with our one and only Mr. Roscoe P. Coltrane, who's licking his blanket. And as you see, I have Mr. Oliver visiting, and Mr. Oliver has to be in my arms because he is not happy that his father is not here. Now, my name is Paul, and like I said in my little intro there, we're going to be talking about very requested. Oh my gosh, so many of y'all have been hitting me up talking about, Paul, you've got to talk about this. So I went down the rabbit hole, and I'm just going to be presenting the information that I have found and making some commentary on it. Now, this is very publicly available information. I've just gathered a bunch of it that we're going to talk about. And as always, I like to say, you know, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a shrink, none of that stuff. My opinions are just that. My opinions are for entertainment purposes only. And I highly suggest you do your own research, come to your own conclusions, and then talk about them in the comments section. So the way the video will work is we're going to be reviewing several things. Just some of the case information that I found, some video footage, some interview footage, some photographs, articles, all that kind of stuff. So we'll put this up here, we'll talk about them, and then we'll finish talking about it in the comment section. So let's go ahead and jump on in with some basics of the case. Okay, so like I said, let's just talk about some of let's lay the foundation. Okay, so we are talking about Eric and Corey Richens from Commerce, I hope I'm saying that right, Utah. Now, they have 3 sons who are all under the age of 11, which this is absolutely tragic. I mean, obviously it's tragic that Eric lost his life, but there's 3 children involved here. Now, Eric died, and I'm air quoting died, on March 3rd, 2022. Y'all, he was only 39 years old. I mean, he was so young. Now, before we get too deep into anything else here, let's talk about who Eric was. And we're going to reference a little article here. I'm going to put it up on the screen. It says, Staying Together for the Kids. Now, family spokesperson Greg Skorda said Wednesday that Eric Richens stayed in the marriage for the sake of the boys. And he says they have 3 boys, 3 young boys, and I think Eric being so involved in their lives as a soccer coach, basketball coach, a baseball coach, he wanted to keep the family together. He also said that Eric was a good father, a philanthropist. He cared about a lot of people. He did the best that he could to make the most of his marriage. Skordas added the Richens family is very happy charges were filed, and they're hopeful that justice will be served. Now, as we will learn in more of the information that we talk about here, this was no shocker to the family, and probably not Eric once if he did have that moment of realization of this is it type thing, because he basically was calling this out along the way of she's going to do something. Might I just interject here? We've just finished the Lori Daybell case, right? Trial. There's still more to come in that, and it's like right on the heels of it is something like this coming out of Utah. I'm like, what? It just baffles me, right? So let's continue. So now what happened is, you know, he passed, there's an investigation. It was like a year long. And this is when cops ended up coming and saying, you know what, he died of poisoning. And they said it was like roughly 5 times the deadly dose of fentanyl. Now, fentanyl is literally destroying this country. It is the most recent like epidemic, whatever you want to call it, and it literally just takes people out. So when you say 5 times the deadly dose, I'm like, oh my God. But this wasn't the first time that she had tried to do this. This was her successful time, but we'll talk about that more. Now let's talk about some bases of like what went down. So the police end up getting called to their home, Willow Court, beautiful big home, at 3:20 a.m. on March 4th. Now they find his body at least, on the floor at the foot of his bed. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Now what she told them is that she was like, you know what, we were celebrating that night. She had just sold a house. We'll talk about that because that didn't go over her either. She's like, you know what, I made him a little Moscow Mule. He really enjoyed that. I took it to him. We were in a celebratory mood. And then she says that that she went to bed and she ended up sleeping, like, not with him, but like in one of the children's bedroom, because the kid was having a nightmare or something like that. And then she gets up around 3 a.m. and she goes back to the bedroom and she finds Eric cold to the touch, dead. So, cute story there, girl, but the evidence will show so far that it ain't how it went down. Now, like I said, the toxicology reports come back. He has this massive dose of fentanyl in his system, and the family and friends are like, yeah, not a drug user, no signs of drug use, no behavioral change of drug, none of the signs that would go along with this. And I'm not trying to say that, simply because I wasn't there, this wasn't the case, but literally there's so much evidence already in this of her trying to take his life multiple times. So from what I've seen, and granted, this again is my opinion, this is allegedly because it has not been tried in court, but this does not seem like some drug user to me that accidentally overdosed. This 100% seems like somebody who was murdered, right? But, okay, as twisted as all that is and as tragic and sad, that's not where it ends. She couldn't leave it alone there, and this is what blows my mind with these types. She had to take it one step further. She wrote a children's book about grief, losing a loved one, specifically the father. Let's take a quick look at this news clip about the cover of it.
She even featured Eric in the book in artwork with angel wings on him.
I mean, I cannot roll my eyes hard enough. I'm just like, who does this, right? It's like every day with these headlines and these cases we look into, I'm just like, and wait till we get to her interview that she went on TV promoting the book. It's sickening. It's absolutely sickening, especially when you realize in the center of it, this man lost his life. These children now don't have a father and obviously not a mother now, right? She's in jail. So let's get a little bit deeper into the case now. Now, March 8th of 2023, this year, she was charged with murder. Now, let's do this. Let's talk about what was going down before his death, like a little bit before then, because this is where a lot of the information is coming from that has caused this investigation to really take it to the next level. So the investigators, they learned that she had purchased these fentanyl pills like days before the husband's death. Now, as always, they're able to go through phone records and they're able to see that there's an acquaintance. And now this acquaintance of hers is kind of like the one who is putting her on Front Street with all this, right? So basically she's going to this acquaintance and she's trying to get a prescription painkiller for, and I'm doing air quotes with this, an investor with a back injury. Now she gets some hydrocodone, but then she's like, look, I need something stronger. And so this is when the fentanyl, comes into play or whatever. So there's that story going on. This guy's cooperating, all this kind of stuff. Now this part was so reminiscent of the Daybell situation with Lori and Larry and Kay and Charles and this whole situation. So let's talk about this bit of evidence. So Eric changed his will and life insurance policy shortly before his death and made his sister the beneficiary instead of her. Now it gets even worse. And again, I'm just like, Daybell part 2. At one point, the wife allegedly logged into his account and tried to make herself the beneficiary, but the insurance company notified Eric and his business partner and they changed it back. Now, can you imagine that going down and the awkwardness at home over that? I mean, he knew what was coming down. He warned everyone about it. Now, another thing we're going to do now is we're going to look at a search warrant, or we're going to just talk about some of the information that was in one of the search warrants, because this gets even more turned up. Now, one thing in the search warrant is that investigators were like, yeah, immediately when this went down, the family was like, all pointing fingers at her, right? So let's talk about that. So in there it says, and I'm going to quote, while investigating the death, I was told by Eric's family member that they suspected his wife had something to do with the death. They advised he warned them that if anything happened to him, she was to blame. Now remember how I said that she had tried this before and tried to take his life and whatnot? So let's see what his sister had to say. So according to his sister, Eric and his wife went to Greece a few years ago, and after his wife gave him a drink, he became violently ill and called his sister, saying he believed his wife had tried to kill him, the warrant reads. On Valentine's Day of 2022, his wife brought him a sandwich, which after one bite, Eric broke into hives and couldn't breathe. He used his son's EpiPen as well as Benadryl before passing out for several hours. So here's the thing, y'all. She's been trying this numerous times, right? Which is what's even more devastating and eerie when you sit here and look at the children's book aspect, because I'm like, how much of this plan did she have going? Now, again, there's money always. Follow the money, right? And we're going to get into that in a minute. But it's the natural need, and again, I can't, professionally diagnose people, but stuff like this, I'm like, I don't know if this is a sociopath, I don't know if this is a narcissist, whatever she got. Okay, first of all, I don't want it. Number two, this personality type, look at Letitia, look at her, all these types that are then like, let me go on after I've done this. They can't be quiet about it. They have to go on like a publicity stunt trail or whatever. She took it to a new level. Allegedly kills the father of her children, then writes a book about how they got through the grieving process. You can't make it up. Now, also, the warrant goes into, the whole bit about the insurance and changing it to a sister. According to the family, it says Eric never disclosed to his wife that he had cut her out of the will. Now, to me, that speaks volumes. When you're at that point right there, that's not good. Now, let's talk about just a little bit of the evidence that has come forth of, let's just call it the shady evidence, okay? Let's talk about the cell phone first. So as you see on the screen here, this little clip from an article, Corey Richens also told police she left her cell phone in their bedroom and did not take it to her child's room, the statement said. Now, remember how I said earlier about what her story was that went down that night when she found him? Okay, let's continue. But investigators later learned that her phone had been locked and unlocked several times, and that it showed movement during the time frame when she said she was in her child's room. According to the statement, text messages were sent and received that had been deleted, the statement said. Now again, another thing with these people who want to kill their spouses and kids and all this type of stuff, it's like they have no idea how cell phones work, how traceable they are, right? Why on earth? And again, I don't want to sit here and say this because I'm like, I wish you hadn't done this, because I'm glad they tell on themselves. If you are going to go to these links, you've tried to kill your husband numerous times, you've got, finally, whatever, you figured out the right dosage, however it works, right? Why in God's name are you going to be doing anything with the phone? I would literally turn the phone off and put it like somewhere, right? I mean, however you're trying to do that. But it's the fact that they do this and then think, oh, I'll just delete the text messages. I'm just like, do they not watch any form of true crime? Did they not read the instruction booklet that came with the phone? It probably tells you in there, right? You really aren't deleting anything on the phone, right? We learned from the Murdoch case, they know when you turn the damn phone like this. And these people are just telling on themselves all along the way, but again, thank God they do. Let's look at some more of the evidence. Now, and here we see it appears she never performed CPR on him as she claimed. The search warrant record said, because of the large amount of blood that came from his mouth. Now, this is another one here when they want to lie about doing CPR and stuff like that. Why? Why? I mean, obviously we know why, because they want the person to die. Never ceases to amaze me. These are very obvious things that they can figure out. I mean, and again, I guess she's never even cracked a true crime novel, right, to figure this stuff out. So let's continue. Now, here's the thing. For someone who is so well versed in attempting to take her husband's life multiple times and all this kind of stuff, it's quite obvious this ain't her first time at the rodeo. So let's talk about some of her other behavior and some of her other legal battles. Now, within the last few months, there's been like this legal battle between Eric's sister and Corey over his estate. Now, according to this claim, Corey is fighting to have Eric's sister removed as the trustee. And between the value of the house, personal property, a business that's going by Eric, the estate's like almost $4 million, okay? So this is a lot of money at stake. Now, also, Corey allegedly assaulted her sister-in-law. This is at a party that she hosted just one day after Eric's death, and I will quote, where she was drinking and celebrating. Now, who's going to do that? I mean, who's going to do it? Somebody who kills her husband and writes a damn book about it. A children's book, nonetheless. I mean, again, it's just like, you can't make it up, right? The story writes itself. If you presented this story in a fiction writing workshop, they would be like, no, it's too cliche. The characters wouldn't be that stupid in real life. But guess what? They are. Now, remember how earlier I talked about how the whole thing about the selling the house, and we'll talk about that. Let's talk about it, okay? Because even that, she can't seem to, keep from getting her fingers all dirty in the mix. So she was sued by fraud like last November from a couple. They bought a home through her real estate company. This is back in 2020. Well, after they get the property, they're like finding mold, leaks, fungi, and all this stuff, and they're basically like, look, Corey knew the truth about the property and she withheld that. We want some money. So as you see, this woman's grimy, okay? Grimy. Horrible person. Took the kid's family, or the kid's father, away from them. Terrible. But now let's get to the icing on the cake. Let's talk about that book now. Now, as you can see, I have put the cover of it up here. It is Are You With Me by Corey D. Richens. We see the father up there with the angel wings. God help us. So yeah, now let's talk about her little publicity trail with that. So she went on ABC4's Good Things Utah on April 6th to promote the book. And this is where she talks about like the unexpected death of him, how it was a shock. And well, let's just go ahead and let her tell the story.
He was 39. It completely took us all by shock.
I mean, my God, took us all by shock. The poor boys, I'm sure it did, right? And you saw her where she was like, it took us all by shock. I mean, there's just something like soulless about her, right? I'm just like, oh my God, let's continue.
My kids and I kind of wrote this book on the different emotions and grieving processes that we've experienced last year.
I'm just like, are you kidding me? I mean, are you kidding me? Who does this? And here's the other thing too. I mean, remember, these boys are like under the age of 11. So this, depending on the ages and whatnot, but they're going to grow up and be older and question things. And like, you have this book out here. Now, by the way, Amazon done ripped it off of the damn shelves. Okay, I'm going to put a little screenshot up of what was there when I tried to look for it. They said, oh no, no, take it out of the Amazon program. We don't want it.
Hoping that it can kind of help other kids, deal with this.
I want to help people deal with this, but isn't this what we see with these types? And not all of them, because not all of them want to go on some campaign to be like, I want to tell the world how to, get through situations like this. But they do it in their own way that we've seen with these other cases. This one's just especially gritting because it's like, oh my God, this poor guy. He was calling this out. He's switching insurance policies. She's tried to take his life numerous times, which he seems to be aware of, right? And he's staying together for the kids and trying to keep things together. I mean, can you imagine the fear of that? Living with someone this monstrous, and then for her to go and write a book about it. I just think of the conversations she probably had with the kids, lying to them the whole time, knowing in her mind what their father, what her husband looked like dying at the hands of her poisoning. I mean, it never ceases to amaze me. I'm baffled by it, right? So we're going to be following this case here. We're going to see what happens with it. I mean, again, it hasn't gone to trial yet, so these are, all allegedly. These are just my opinions. But we'll follow it as it unfolds, because this is another one of these next level stories that just, sadly we see strewn across headlines day in and day out. So anyways, if you're watching, drop some sofas down in the comments section. Let me know you're still here. Oliver says hello and thank you for being here. And until the next time that little Oliver comes to visit, and so does Mr. Roscoe, and we gather around here to talk about these crazy headlines, I'll see y'all there.